This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? Can't wait for this broadcast. We got to break down a tie. We got to look at things going on in the world of college football. A potential massive contract is coming for Mel Tucker. A big game for the Spartans. A potential trap game for the Wolverines. I can't wait to break it all down. I'm excited because at least we get to talk about a Detroit Lions football game that wasn't a loss, but really, just like everybody said, it is really weird to talk about a football game that ends in a tie.
It's like kissing your sister. You don't get off on kissing your sister, do you? Nobody does. It's horrible, man. Like, that game, honestly, that game was freaking pathetic. Like, this is what I'll tell you. I thought the defense played well enough. Mind you, they were going up against Pittsburgh's, we'll call it the C squad. It wasn't even their B squad. But that defense made plays. That defense showed up. That offense was brutal. Absolutely brutal. The run game worked well. And the run game especially worked well when they went big and they added an extra offensive lineman. But after a certain point, the Steelers just started stacking the box, walking guys up to the line of scrimmage, and Jared Goff can't throw a football to save his life. And he's allowed to continue in this game, which ends up costing them this game. I know we can all point to the kicker and missing the extra point. You know, when those things happen, every Detroit Lions fan's like, this game, that's going to cost us this game. And sure as shit it did. But Jared Goff and his inability to move the ball downfield has come back and bit this team in the ass again. And I'm just gonna jump right to the next topic here. Dan Campbell's completely at fault. Dan Campbell is the reason why this team ends up tying this game, because he has zero faith in David Blau. Well, if you have no faith in David Blau as your backup quarterback, or even your third string quarterback, why the hell is he on your roster? You've got Jared Goff in there with a torn oblique muscle who can't throw the ball more than 5 feet through the air. The air yards in this game were less than 2 yards a pass. Like, 5 feet. 5 feet, John. Your quarterback could only throw the ball 5 feet in front of himself. That's horrible. Like, you can't do anything. Like, you give your playbook away. And you've got a head coach who's like, I talked to the trainer. I talked to Jared Goff. I talked to Brunell. I talked to everybody. And it was a decision I made. Okay, great. But that decision cost this team a chance at a victory. Again. Look, I like Dan Campbell. I'm going to continue to say this. I like Dan Campbell. I want this to work out. I want him to be the guy. John, I really want him to be the guy. But when you show up on Sunday and you strip your offensive coordinator of his play calling duties so you can take over the play calling duties, and then you go out there and you do what you did, and your quarterback gets hurt the first time he tries to launch a ball deep, and then you keep him in the game for the rest of the game, and it costs you a win? Bro, you have to be better. You have to be better. This game was given to them. Me and you were messaging in overtime. This game was gifted to them multiple times, not only by the Steelers, but by the referees. The referees hooked them up with certain penalties that were called. You went and you even did some deep diving, and I want to give you all the credit in the world. You went and you did all the deep diving. There was a chance for this team to kick a field goal in overtime to win. What was it from? Was it from the 18-yard line?
No, it was far back, so 48, so it would have ended up being 10 yards back, so from the 38.
From the 30, okay, fine. So it would have been from the 38, which puts you in a little bit of a better position than what you ended up giving Santos anyways. And obviously, Dan Campbell has zero faith in him. That's why he didn't allow him to kick.
I know what you're referencing. the Lions had an opportunity on third down to kick it, and Dan Campbell said no, he didn't want to play for that. He wanted to get it closer. What ended up happening, the kick would have been closer. Eventually, he kicked a 48-yarder. The Lions had the ball on the 28, which would be 7 yards back, would have been 35, would have been about 45 yards, about 3 to 4 yards closer had they done it. And what ends up happening, which is why I would argue they should have tried it on third down, you have TJ Hockenson, and when I went and looked at the playlist, Hockenson gets a 10-yard penalty, which pushed it back, which made it a bad situation in regards to the opportunity for the Lions to get the W. But really, if you're really honest with yourself, Santoso probably would have missed it from anywhere, because if you're going to chunk a kick that badly, then he had the worst case of nerves of all time. So really, cause what's crazy with the Lions is, and it was briefly mentioned on the broadcast, when the Lions had the chance to make the pick and they didn't, the broadcaster said it. I think it was Daryl Johnson. He's so astute. He's like, bad football teams, they just oftentimes end up finding ways not to win and finding ways to lose. And for the Lions and the Steelers, and you can't blame them, they were without their starting quarterback, they both just tried to trade the game back to each other, and nobody wanted to win. That's why that was a football game that deserved to be to end in a tie. It was sloppy. It was mistake-filled. If you're the Steelers, how are you not putting the ball in Najee Harris's hand and letting him just handle business? How are you passing the ball with that level of frequency against this run defense, the Lions' run defense, which isn't that good? I think Mike Tomlin kind of took a mental vacation this week and was just like, let me see what I can do. Because after that first drive, it really felt like the Steelers went to sleep. They made a bunch of mistakes. Now, to your point about Dan Campbell, look, man, it just kind of has the feel that his hands are tied behind his back. I don't feel like he's comfortable going to a backup at that position because of the fact in that game he's being told, hey, stick with Goff, stick with him. And then he sees his running game just kind of being really productive at first until it got slowed down. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to call a heavy game based on the run. They secured over 200 yards. And he's like, whoa, what the hell? He's watching it. He's like, we're kind of in this. So I'm going to take a calculated risk. Now, here's the thing I want to kind of maybe pick your brain at. You saw that first pass in overtime that went to Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
Goff looked like it was nice. Do you think it's Goff, or do you think that maybe we can start to look at this scheme in how routes are designed that are not really good enough to get these receivers open enough so that Goff is comfortable? I kind of feel like it's a little bit of everything, but Goff was able to make a throw late in the game. Why wasn't he able to do that on third down? I think you and I both said to ourselves, damn, what does it say about Jared Goff that they're calling so many run plays on third and over 10? I think you and I were like, wow, they really understand that Goff can't do shit, and they understand that they just want to play ultra conservative and focus on the defense, which you and I are not used to. But to see that was really jarring, I think, for a lot of people.
So here's the thing. I'm okay if that's what you want to do, right? If you want to establish an identity for this team and you want it to be run heavy, because let's be honest, we talked about it in the preseason. We talked about it before anything even got kicked off. The strength of this team lies in the offensive line and it lies in the running game. All right, so if that's what you want to do, we're both okay with that. That's fine. If you want to dial up some play action because that's going to help get wide receivers open, I'm cool with that as well. But Jared Goff has still struggled to get the ball down the field to anybody with any consistency. I think you're right. It's both. It's absolutely both. I think that this team offensively needs to lean on its identity of being a run-first, run-heavy team, which then sets up play action, which then is going to draw up the defense so your wide receivers can then get a little bit more separation. Remember, these wide receivers are essentially bushel bin wide receivers. These are guys that you are going and you're grabbing basically from like Walmart's clearance bin, from their clearance section, and you're like, hey, go out there and start for me. So I think it's a little bit of both, but it's to me at this point, Jared Goff has been so underwhelming and has performed so poorly It's a complete frustration every single week watching him.
So then Monday comes around, and of course, a lot of the talk Monday was going to be about, the run game, his play calling, how he felt about it. So I just wanted to ask directly, and it's been asked, but I worded it in a way that I think lent to a little bit more insight from Dan Campbell. I asked him directly. I said, why does Jared Goff deserve to be your starter? And to this point, he says that he believes that a healthy Goff gives this team the best opportunity to win. And he also hinted at and said that, it's not all Goff's fault. That every time he had the call to pass, the protection started to break down, meaning that Goff, and everyone's well aware, and yeah, he's got to make key throws, but everybody's well aware that he's got to have a little bit of a pocket. The problem is once the pressure got there, once it broke down a little bit, Goff is holding the football so long that he was running backwards into the pressure. I've never seen something so crazy in my life.
I want to talk about that, and I'm glad you brought that up because
it was crazy.
This is a guy who
have you ever seen
every time the pocket collapsed,
he sniffed a sack. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was nuts. Every time the pocket collapsed, he would do this thing where he would spin around in a circle. He'd basically do a pirouette trying to get away from the pressure. And then he would try to take off in a direction. Like, if you're afraid that you're going to get hit, why are you spinning around like a freaking top before you go someplace? Just
go forward.
Run to the
forward.
Right. Anywhere. Run any place, but besides doing a circle. He did that the entire game. Honestly, it felt like he was sacked 12 times, and on 12 of those sacks, he just spun around in a circle before he got taken down.
It was no quarterback can smell pressure like Jared Goff, but he was hurt. I think the decision should have been made for him to go out. Now, I don't know if those conspiracy theories are true that the Lions really don't really care about winning and things like that. But bottom line, I think the way in which the team played, I felt like they deserved the win in Pittsburgh. They played well enough to a certain degree that if maybe you just potentially had a healthy quarterback that could dink and dunk, maybe you could have had that momentum, but they decided to stick with Goff. And he revealed on Wednesday, he said that, he might have been more limited than he maybe even knew in that moment because there's adrenaline and he wants to be tough and things like that. So I get it, but we all see it now. It's pretty clear that Goff in this offense can't function. I mean, you basically turn TJ Hockenson into a blocker. You don't target him. He's now making mistakes. He's making critical mistakes. So the offense for Dan Campbell, like we were joking, it was like 1970 football. Just run it on third down, and let's see what happens. We got a chance to see DeAndre Swift, which was a positive. It was a little bit unfortunate we didn't get to see the new wide receiver in Josh Reynolds, but we're going to see him now next week against Cleveland. So it's a tie. So, like I said, everybody kind of felt really weird about it. But I want to ask you this about Hockenson. Are you a little bit concerned based on his production? Because 2 weeks ago, he was okay, got more targets, and was more involved. But this week, it really looked like the Steelers were able to limit him, and the Lions basically didn't target him. And then he had unfortunate mistakes. Anytime a tight end of that caliber has more penalties than receptions, it just comes across looking very weird. And it's just, I don't understand why that the connection has been so hot and cold with Hockenson. I would think that a player of that caliber, you should be able to find him. You should be able to, like, did you see, if you just watch briefly the Monday night game, did you see how quickly they got Kittle involved? And all he did was run a 3-yard dig in. The Lions can't do that. You can't have Hockenson go into the middle of the field, a tight end screen, an opportunity for him to get in the ball, maybe just an end around. Like, you and I have watched football for so long that you would think that the tight end would be able to be utilized in an offense if it's practiced enough. I'm a little concerned because of the fact that Hockenson has kind of plateaued. It hasn't found the end zone in several weeks.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it almost looks as though there's a little bit of regression. I mean, you remember last season when he busted on the scene, we're like, oh, okay, he looks like he's the real deal. And then this year, he had a couple of games where he looked like he's an absolute stud. And I don't know. I don't know if it's a combo of who his quarterback is. I don't know if it's a combo of the play calling. I don't know if it's a combo of the play design. I don't know if it's even just mental mistakes. Like, hey, I'm going to grab this guy's jersey because I feel like he's getting by me. Or instead of just kind of throwing like a moving screen, he's going to clutch and grab. I don't know what it is, but at this point, if you're a Lions fan, you should be concerned because if you look at this roster, he's one of the final holdovers from the previous regime. Do you realize that the majority of this roster has been essentially gutted by this current regime and by trading guys away and just letting guys go or releasing them, period? Hockenson is one of those guys who is still from the Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia era. This was one of their high draft picks. This is a guy who, to be something, be a building block, be a part of the future. And at this point, he looks like he's more of a liability than anything else. He should have been one of your bigger offensive weapons, especially in this game. You know? And like you said, the connection there with Jared Goff, I don't know what's lacking. I don't know why it's not working the way it should be. For a quarterback whose main strength is essentially throwing the ball 7 yards downfield, that's gimme time for a tight end. And for a tight end of Hockenson's caliber, he should be out there killing it. I don't know. I really don't. At this, there are so many things that have gone sideways with this season and so many things that have just kind of flipped and turned upside down. It has me completely scratching my head, and I don't know what I'm actually watching anymore, which I think is the most part.
Yeah, it's crazy because it just seems like when they should zig, they zag. When they should be aggressive, they punt it. When they should dial it back, they're full bore. So it's.
And this is the thing. Both of us understand, and we're both trying to be patient because we understand that there's nothing here.
Right.
But it is still frustrating when you watch it.
Yeah, there's still more talent than nothing. I mean, you do have DeAndre Swift. You did have the rookie Jamar Jefferson, who obviously showed explosiveness. Maybe you should have got him out there a little bit sooner in his career to kick off his development instead of worrying so much about special teams. But similarly, which is so weird, Jamar Jefferson gets hurt, and that's unfortunate. Godwin Igwebuike has a beautiful 40-yard run. And how many more times did you give it to him? Less than 5. It makes no sense. Ride a hot hand. See what he does. He obviously was good enough to break a touchdown of over 35 yards, and he looked strong doing it. Give him the football. Take a little bit of the load off of DeAndre Swift. See if potentially you have something late in the game. Give the ball to Kabinda. Try something a little bit more. Try something different. When the Steelers line up the box, they were like the light bulb went on to the defensive coordinator. Oh, let me just line up 8 in the box and let them pass. See what happens. Hey, guess what happens? They can't do nothing. So potentially speaking, it's just a football team's 0-8-1. They're not finishing 0-17, which is fine, I guess. But it just lends to the belief that the only win they're probably going to really have ahead of them is the Bears game on Thanksgiving. That might be it. That might be the only opportunity for Dan Campbell to get a victory the rest of the way. And we'll see, if Justin Fields comes in and he wants to show the national TV audience something. I don't think you're going to get it against the Browns because they're pissed. Maybe Baker Mayfield doesn't play, but they just got waxed by the Patriots. And it's just right now what's crazy, cuz and I'm sure you pay attention as well. We're 9 weeks in, and a lot of talk now has been on the draft. Now revisionist history about the Stafford deal. A lot of talk about potentially how this roster was assembled. So a lot of things not related to football being discussed because the football on the field is crazy, man. A 16-16 tie in Week 10 after the bye. I mean, all you can say is the first play offensively after a bye week is a penalty. What are you going to say to that? But you still, if you want to look at the bright side, a silver lining, the defense shined after a missed assignment on that first possession, leaving a wide receiver wide open to get the touchdown. But you clamped down and you forced Mason Rudolph to kind of look average, and he looked like a backup. So you didn't get blown out. Mason Rudolph didn't earn his massive contract. The fans of the Steelers are pissed because they're embarrassed to tie the Detroit Lions. So the Lions move forward. They play the Browns. I think it's going to be tough because Nick Chubb, I think, is going to take over the game. I think that you're going to have an opportunity with that offense if they understand what to do. I think the Browns are going to be formidable, especially coming after a loss. They're not going to – I don't think any team wants to have the Detroit Lions secure their first victory against them when everybody knows the Lions are limited and they're injury riddled and they're a football team that's just trying to learn fundamentals and how to execute on a weekly basis out there on the football field. So I don't see a win. Do you? And any silver lining, anything that you could see that could potentially get the Lions W? I mean, the talk now, major storyline is Goff might not play. Spoke to the media on Wednesday, kind of looking, like an oblique injury where you can't torque a little bit. So this might be a good thing for fans to see something different. I would say here's what's going to happen, because you and I watch Lions football. Tim Boyle will get the start, and he'll look good for 2 drives. He'll look like the next coming of Tom Brady. Zips it in there. He'll run for 5 yards, run for 7 yards, and then he's going to throw 3 interceptions. And then it's like, oh, shoot, because quickly the Browns defense will realize, let's do a little bit of pressure from the outside. Let's see what Jonah Jackson's about. Let's see if we can attack Big V. And then Tim Boyle will throw interception after interception after we anoint him. So mark it down. We are going to anoint him in the first quarter, and then David Blau time in the fourth. That's how I see it.
Look, this is a game where you're rolling into Cleveland. Their quarterback is completely beat up. Like, he's just been ran through the ringer. Poor Baker Mayfield. Look, I'm a huge fan of Baker. I know he's whatever he is as far as a quarterback goes, but I'm a huge fan of Baker. I like him a lot. Now, you've got Nick Chubb coming off the COVID list. You've got a team that is angry, that is upset because of the way they got waxed by the Patriots. I'm not 100% sure how the Lions get a win here. And this was when I was looking at when the season basically came out and all the games were announced. This was one of those games I was looking at possibly going to, because I'm a Browns fan. I like the Browns. I don't feel like you can be a bandwagon fan and you can jump around and go jump on a team that like, you can't be a Kansas City fan unless you were a Kansas City fan when they sucked. That's just kind of how I feel. So the Browns has always been bad, so I'm a Browns fan when I'm not a Lions fan. It's just, I don't know. I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. So this was a game I wanted to go to. I wanted to go see it, and I think Cleveland's a pretty cool city. You can go check some things out. I don't think the Lions can get a win here. I really don't. I don't know how it would work out. You would need a stellar effort from that defense yet again, and you would need Tim Boyle to basically come out and, like you said, look like the second coming of Tom Brady. Instead, he's going to turn into a pumpkin like Matt Stafford. So, I don't know. I mean, if we could get Kelly Stafford out here to start throwing some footballs like she throws pretzels, that might be great.
Absolutely. It's really a bad sign in the season. I was like, to let you guys in a little bit. Obviously Monday we do Zoom meetings with the Lions, which is great because I can work, I can do the practice stuff, take a little break in the middle of the day for the Lions in the afternoon. It's a beautiful schedule for post a football game. They have a media session on Monday afternoon. And Dan Campbell, obviously, is professional, has his, talking about Goff and other things like that. Then Taylor Decker steps up. And it's like, okay, the first question is going to be, so how do you think you did? And it's great. Then all of a sudden, a beat writer just lobs a bomb out there. And I was like, oh, he's just like, it was greatly set up really to get a response. He's like, I know you're not oblivious, but Sports Talk Radio has been talking and they wanted to trade you. What's your reaction? And Taylor, like, instantly you could sense if you slow-mo it, his eyes almost start turning red. And he's like, this is bullshit. I can't believe that, that talk was going on. I had to answer from my parents and my friends, and I played well, and he got all butthurt. And for the Lions players, they're so buttoned up to hear that. I was on video. I almost started chuckling. I almost started laughing because he was so upset. Dude, you're a professional NFL athlete. How do you get that offended that a team potentially would entertain or that talking heads would entertain trading you? You're that sensitive because of the fact that everybody in a rebuild wants to play GM and wants to build a football team. Duh, everybody plays Madden. We all build rosters. We all play fantasy football. We all do daily fantasy football. We build rosters. So the talk of trades, and I think probably what bugged him most was those that said that, hey, how come you're not coming back because you got a finger injury? And it was a significant one. But you got to know that nobody's talking about your medical history, so people speculate. I thought was one of the things that was crazy is that he got so upset. And I know he cares. He's a young offensive lineman that's sacrificing his body. But, dude, you got a massive contract to be able to deal with it. And if they traded you, you know potentially you're one of the good guys. They would have traded you to the Colts if the deal was right. And you still got to know in the back of your mind, as an NFL athlete or any athlete in a sport where there's such high turnover, every single day your career is ticking away. You know, it's not for long. And the team drafted Penei Sewell. So if you go back on YouTube and type in Taylor Decker, it was crazy that he went off like that. I thought it was interesting to hear, something out of the ordinary. But that's where we're left. We're left with the drama, the draft, mock drafts, looking at Tavon Thibodeau, quarterbacks, stuff like that. But I will say this: the Lions.
Before you move on,
yeah,
doesn't it kind of let you inside a little bit to, I guess, with the mindset of this team, what they're built like? I mean, to me, that's just soft. That's just soft. Like
it's not. It's something that doesn't have to be perceived that way, because it is something where an athlete understands that media and sports radio, they're gonna, always talk about moving on from players. They're always going to talk about why a player's not there. And I think, too, though, it does show that he cares. He wants to be part of this rebuild. He's given his time and energy. He mentioned specifics about, walking his dog in the community and having people go, "Are you getting traded?" That's got to be annoying when your personal life meets your professional life in that sense. The one thing would be funny is if an athlete would be listening to the radio and people are dogging him, and then he could kind of talk over it, kind of give a live commentary. That would be funny, I think. It'd be really interesting insight to be like, "Oh, look at this. The sports talk show or the podcast is talking about me. Now let me break it down of what really happened," and stuff like that. But yeah, of course, I think it should be an honor. I always say, me personally, all press is good press. And you get nervous when they stop talking about you, when they just say, "Who the hell cares about this guy?" The Lions have a passionate fan base because, this, we're putting out so much content that the SI Lions site is the third or fourth most viewed NFL site on SI. So you fans are rabid and you love it, and I love it, and it makes it fun to keep pumping out podcasts and content because you guys consume it. You like it. So if you're a Lion, you should be happy that people are still talking about you, because you're a football team with no wins. The only team without any wins. So I just think that you got to remember, too, you and I are in our 30s and 40s. We're getting older now. Shit just rubs us, just rubs off our shoulder. This is a young dude, energetic in his mid-20s. So he's still got that piss and vinegar in him where he's like, "What the fuck, they're talking about me? Why is my mom and dad asking if I'm getting traded?" So I understand that side of it perfectly. But I also understand at 42 now, I don't give a shit about shit like that. I just would be like, "Oh, that's an honor. My check clears. It's all good, baby. Let's get on the next film. Let's see how I can block the defensive ends of the Cleveland Browns." But it was cool. It was interesting. Definitely out of the ordinary. It made our podcast. It was really, really, really interesting stuff. And I hope, I just hope they do get a win, because we've talked about losses in so many different ways and breakdowns. I mean, I do want to say this, though. Was that the worst field goal try you've ever seen? It cost him his job. How do you duff a kick? How do you line up when everything's on the line? And you were making them in practice. You were making them. Dude, that dude was big. And give you guys a little insight. I got a first-hand look of the new kicker, Riley Patterson, because while we're talking and I'm explaining it, look him up. Dude is 5'3" and 80 pounds. The dude is so slight. Vito, he could stand next to Vito, and you might not know the difference between the two individuals. I've never seen a stark contrast between Ryan Santoso and Riley Patterson. The dude looks like he's 15 years old. And I almost went up to him and said, because he was walking off today, but we were talking to somebody else. I was going to talk to him. I was like, "Wow, that's a guy with a leg. I can't wait to see it," from the Patriots practice squad. But that was one of the worst kicks I think I've ever seen tried, where you don't even get it to the crossbar. Bro, how embarrassing.
I mean, do you remember when Ndamukong Suh kicked the field goal? Or kicked an extra point? I think it was an extra point. Like, you had an offensive lineman put one through the uprights. This guy can't do it?
That's his job, just like that.
Dude, it's weird. He had, you could tell he was, it's all mental for him. It's all mental.
Yeah, mental.
It's the total yips. So, it was a horrible kick. I was like, what? Like, when I watched it real time, I was like, that had to have been tipped or blocked. Like somehow they had to allow somebody to get through, and then they showed it in slow-mo, and my God, it was so bad.
If Dan Campbell could have cut him right then and there, you could tell by the way he was egging his team on to get back out there and to focus. Man, was he probably pissed off at his kicker because they did everything pretty much what they needed to do to get the W. Mm-hmm. Effing kickers, man. They just ruin everything. Effing stinking kickers. All right. I'm excited because while our pro teams in football leaves a lot to be desired, and we're talking about building and moving on from quarterbacks and stuff like that, the college teams, it was nice to see. It's nice to see every Tuesday the college football playoff show, and on the big first screen, you get the likes of Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and then 6 and 7 are Michigan State. Now, of course, there'll be that tribal turf war of who's ranked higher, but to be in the top 10, 3 Big Ten schools in the top 10 is amazing what these schools have done. Credit to Michigan for going to Penn State and making the play late. You know, you can look at the game however which way you wanted to, but I'll say this. When Michigan had the ball with less than 4 minutes left, down on the road, I thought, okay, this is it. This is where they're going to choke. They'll fumble it. They'll do something bad. Nope. They zipped it down, I think, 6-7 plays, and they were in the end zone. And I was very impressed with the resolve of Michigan, and it just goes to show you this team might be a little bit different. Now, are they a blowout loss different than Ohio State than in years past? I think they can compete with Ohio State, but I don't know if defensively that anybody can stop Ohio State. So I think for Michigan and Michigan State, I think that the gold standard now in the 2-game playoff ahead is to try and compete against your opponents. And for Michigan State, I think this is a prime opportunity to go on the road and shock the world. Do they take offense to the disrespect in the rankings with the college football playoff committee member just talking a bunch of nonsense about what he thinks about Michigan and Michigan State? Do they take that energy on the road? Do they take a potential announcement of a huge contract extension? Do they take that on the road and try and stop C.J. Stroud and that offense? I don't think so. I just think that if Ohio State's on their game and they're relentless, they're just hard to stop. They're speedy. They're efficient. Ryan Day's got that thing purring after the Oregon loss. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a 7-point game. I think there'll be an opportunity to have some things go on, but I think they're going to fall short. But I think they're going to compete. I think it'll be a very hard-fought game, which could help the University of Michigan 1 week later if they're softened up a little bit. If Ohio State can be, go through a real battle back and forth against the Spartans, they may come into Michigan a little bit bruised and beaten. I wish this year would be the year that Michigan State had Ohio State in East Lansing, but it's not, so we'll see what happens. But I think 2 teams – now, for me personally, I want to ask you, because you're seeing it now. Michigan and Michigan State are both going to play Ohio State. You've seen it. You watch it. You know both schools well. You've seen Ohio State in the Big Ten. Which school do you think has the edge potentially if one is able to get a W?
I don't think either one of these schools get a W, but this is the issue I have with Michigan State and Michigan, I guess, for that matter. It's their secondary. The strength of Ohio State is what they do with their quarterback and their wide receivers.
Man.
They have some of the best wide receivers in the country. And I don't think Michigan's depth is in their secondary. And I don't think you've seen it with Michigan State. Like, Michigan State can just get torched with their secondary. So I don't look, if you have a gun to my head and you're like, you have to pick something, don't be a fence sitter. You have to pick something. I would probably pick Michigan. And that's only because I think that up front, with their defensive ends and with their defensive line, they provide enough pressure where they make things very difficult for C.J. Stroud. And he's got to maybe force some passes and he's got to throw the ball a little bit quicker than the play is allowed to develop. That is the only reason. And look, it is because you have a gun to my head that I'm picking that way. I don't think either one of these schools necessarily match up real well against Ohio State. I think if you're Michigan, you benefit a little bit because you get to go and watch what Michigan State does and how Michigan State competes, and you know Michigan State's going to play hard because basically the ball's in their court. Like, the season is in their hand this week. If they can win this game, that means they just got to get through Penn State, which I don't know about you. I don't think Penn State is as formidable an opponent as Ohio State. You win this game, you basically have your season in your hand, and you can go and play in the Big Ten Championship, and you can go play in the college football playoff. So it's going to be interesting. I think Michigan State's going to come out hard. I think this is going to be a tough football game. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan State won. I just don't think that their secondary, they're going to have to do something totally different that we haven't seen all year on defense to help cover up the deficiencies in that secondary. I don't know if that defense is going to have to play more zone. I don't know what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to figure out something else other than what they basically put on film for the Purdue game and what they put on film during the Michigan game. But I think Michigan State has a fighting shot to win this game. I just don't think they do. As far as Michigan goes, you're in an advantageous spot. You get to go watch what Michigan State does. You get to watch how they beat up Ohio State for you. So Ohio State comes in a little bit beleaguered, a little bit bruised, a little bit battered. You can hopefully take advantage of that. All that being said, you can't look past Maryland. If you have to go out there and you basically have to job Maryland this week, and you have to drop 1,000 points on them. So let's not get this stuff twisted. This is one of those things where both schools control their own destiny, but in order to fulfill it, you got to get through the best team in the Big Ten, and that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough sledding.
So this week, the big news around East Lansing has been the contract. And here's the thing, and I can tie it into the point that we just were talking about. See, I think Michigan State has the better chance to win because of the fact that they want to prove things. They want to go out there and handle business.
Michigan doesn't?
I think they do, but the pressure is going to be so great because I think that this is a game, really a referendum game, that a lot of people will say that if they don't win it, Harbaugh should be fired. And you're going to have the restless.
I've already said that.
Restless. Yeah, exactly. So I think the pressure is going to be so high turned up on Michigan. I don't know if they can handle it, especially being at home. For them, potentially, it might have been behoove them to have an opportunity to go on the road, not to have that pressure. But I'm fascinated to see how Mel Tucker adapts to what he knows about Ohio State. I think it's a referendum game, and for me personally, I think they have a good chance to compete, a chance to potentially do some things. And what makes them special is you have a trump card, and his name is Kenneth Walker. If your line can potentially muck this up.
You got a unicorn there.
Yeah, whatever you want to call him, the great Kenneth Walker, Heisman Trophy candidate. If you can control the game and you establish the run, so what's the best defense against Ohio State's offense? Keep their asses on the bench, quiet the crowd, maybe get the ball first and take it down the field for an opening touchdown. Maybe a little bit of pressure and nerves on Ohio State, maybe a turnover here or there. Let's see how they would handle a 10-0 deficit. But I do believe in the end, if they get going, if Michigan State, which it kind of seems like it's going to happen, Michigan State can't keep the pedal to the metal for all 4 quarters. They just don't have the horses. Ohio State can take a quarter off and then just rev it up and score 28 points in 4 minutes. And you just hope that Michigan State doesn't succumb to the pressure. Similar to basketball, what ends up happening in big games, Michigan State starts turning the ball over. They start making mistakes. They start going 3 and out. They get all out of whack, out of rhythm, and things like that. But for Michigan State, I just want to see how they respond this week in the biggest game of the year. It's their playoff. Maybe they handle business. Maybe they believe, and they go there and they scratch and claw, and they take it to Ohio State. I don't think eventually that Michigan State's going to win, but I think they have a better chance than Michigan. But I'm so curious, what do you make of all this talk? 10 years? $95 million for Mel Tucker? I love it. Look, when rich people want to spend money on a program I support, I will never be opposed to somebody spending money on Michigan State. Never. But for me and you, I think we kind of think the same way. We're not going to fork over $100 a ticket to see Jack from Royal Oak. You know what I mean? We want to see, hey, if I'm going to spend $150 a ticket, I want to see someone awesome. I want to see Bill Burr. I want to see, the likes of Kevin Hart. I want to see entertainers, someone who's established. how are you, if you're Matt Ishbia or another donor, how are you not going to wait? Okay, beating Michigan's great, but you've seen that you can kind of do that with the style of football that Spartans play, rough and tough, grit, get all butthurt about being called a little brother. We've been there, done that. Why not wait if you got the cash in hand? Just wait 1 week to see if Mel Tucker beats Ohio State. If you go out there, you announce this on Thursday or today or tomorrow, you announce that he's the second among the top 3 highest paid college football coaches, and then they go out and lose 45-3. What's that going to look like? That's going to look like you were desperate because LSU came sniffing. I feel like Mel deserves to be paid, but he's making $5.5 million. He's not making shitty money. I think you wait and then maybe even let kind of LSU put their cards on the table. And I know you want to maybe get ahead of this, but I'm always of the opinion you wait and see. What if they get beat and then go out and lose to Penn State and then lose the bowl game? What if something coaching happens? You know, you're going to reward Mel Tucker off of 9-1 start to a season? I'm a little hesitant on that front. Now, it's not my money. I'm a little hesitant to say, you beat Ohio State, boom, we'll pay you more than Nick Saban. Beat Ohio State, that should be the key to become in that range. $9.5 million a season, 10 years. That's a commitment. That's like, hey, we're out here ready to do some shit. And with that, you would then have to expect national title picture, get in the playoff, couple playoff wins. You can't drop 10 years on somebody and expect, 1 win in Indy. You can't expect that, but I think it's a little premature. I'm excited. Trust me. Please don't misinterpret my reservation for not being excited. If they announce it, I'll be excited because I like Mel Tucker. I like his swagger. I think he embodies what a football coach should look like. But I'm more of the opinion, do something grand and spectacular. Beating Michigan is not worth 10 years, $95 million.
I think it kind of tells you where Michigan is inside Michigan State's head.
Yeah.
And like, it is the mountaintop. The mountaintop is beating Michigan.
No, I would say it speaks to the fact that LSU came sniffing and they don't want to get punked.
I mean, that might be part of it. I think that plays a major part in it. But here's the thing. I'm in line with you. You haven't really done anything yet. Like, Mel Tucker hasn't really won anything yet. He looks like, let's be honest, Mel Tucker looks like he's a great head coach, right?
OG, baby, OG.
He basically took a team that was supposed to finish dead last this season and has them contending for a college football playoff berth. Like, that should tell you all you really need to know. But this has not even been a full 2 years. On top of that, you haven't won anything of note. Like, you beat Michigan twice. Cool for you. I mean, at this point, I feel like Jim Harbaugh he's the special needs Harbaugh in the Harbaugh clan. He's the one who needs to wear a helmet and a drool guard. So, bravo on beating the kid who wears the dunce cap because he's a big dummy. You haven't beat Ohio State. You haven't won. You haven't been to Indianapolis. You haven't won anything yet. And to me, it speaks to where the business of college football is going, but it also seems a little bit premature. I understand that you've got programs out there like LSU that are sniffing around and kind of kicking the tires a little bit, but maybe wait till after this week. Maybe wait and see how this team holds up. And look, Again, I already said it. Michigan State has a shot to win this game.
Yeah,
Michigan State wins this game. Hell, give him $10 million a year. He deserves it.
Bro, there's a chance they win this game. You and I are going to Indy, baby. We'll make our way down there. If they beat Ohio State, Penn State, and we have a chance for revenge against Purdue, shit, we're going to go down there.
I'm all about it. I'm all about it. If that's the case, I'll even wear green. I don't care. I'll wear green.
No, we're going to go in a professional capacity. We're going to try to go in
cool. We'll do that too.
Yeah, a professional capacity. And you'll see how hard it is for me not to grit and act professional in a press box. So we'll see what happens as it goes forward. But I just don't see it. Like, it's just hard. It's hard to see Michigan State on the road in the horseshoe handling their business. But hell, if it gets announced, like I said, man, billionaires, it does sound like the biggest trip ever to have so much money that let's peel back for 1 second before we get out of here. Do you think it should be allowed that boosters can pay a college football coach? That seems a little bit
Dude, that's
interesting.
crazy.
It is crazy. Like you could say, you know what? I want this coach to have a raise, so here's some money, so pay him. And the universities and the rules are like, okay. I just think it's a little bit like, you know, are boosters to that degree that influential now? Because if Mel Tucker doesn't deliver, what does that mean? Then they just go, all right, good money after bad. Now you're talking seriously where you've thrown, you know, this much money at Mel Tucker. If you don't like him, you got to buy him out. Mm-hmm. You got to fork over the buyout. So that's some serious play to start jacking around money to hire and give coaches raises and stuff like that. I can't wait to see the number for the buyout and things like that. So we'll see it play out. Make sure you follow at Detroit Podcast, follow Detroit Sports Podcast as we have a good time with it and we see how this progresses this week in college football. I think loss for Michigan State, close, win for Michigan, Maryland, and we then get to see how this kind of progresses with the ultimate game, the showdown game for it all in the Big Ten East, Michigan and Ohio State. We'll see how it plays out. We shall see moving forward. Make sure anywhere that you guys listen to your favorite podcast, make sure you hit and find Detroit Sports Podcast. And when you find it, Old English D, hit that subscribe button and you'll find our daily content. And make sure to download Doc and Jock every single Thursday, going strong for 8 years. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Please, guys, I implore you. Message. We love reading it. We love the GIFs. I love tagging Adam in posts. He's like, God, does this guy work? I tag him 15 times a day. And I know he sees all the replies you guys are sending. And he's like, God, what kind of fans have we cultivated here where people are sending weird GIFs, weird takes?
I love them all. They're crazy.
Yes, they are crazy. And it makes it so fun to put a post up and you guys take it all twisted, to tell jokes, to get in the mix, to see us commenting under big accounts and getting all the attention, talking about Jim Caldwell, raising a ruckus at 3:15 in the morning. It's fun. It is really fun where, okay, this is for the listeners, the hardcore. You guys know that certain narratives have started to be driven around town and you go, where the hell is this coming from? You know where it's coming from? It's coming from Detroit Sports Podcast, baby. So you want to know where all this Jim Caldwell nonsense is coming from? It's coming from us. And that's what we love to do, is we love to influence the sports debate. And whatever our opinions are, it doesn't really matter. It's the fact that you guys will take the stuff that we want to talk about and debate it and have fun in Detroit. And that's what you guys have allowed us to do with a lot of topics, so I can sit back and enjoy fun chats with my cousin. So thank you guys from the bottom of our heart for listening, taking a minute out of your day to message us or listen to our podcast. We know you are, and it means a lot to us. Thanks, cuz. Podcasting time is over. I can't wait to do this again next week. I'm chomping at the bit for football, baby. Let's do this.